Hello, everyone. Welcome, everybody. If you could please put your first, last name, and email address in the chat box. I will make sure to send you any follow-up. That way you can do the survey for the certificate. And then we'll get started. I'm just letting people come in.
Amanda, it's Susan
Yes.
Flood. I'm here on the phone.
Perfect. I will put you down, Susan.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for coming. A lot of fun people on here today. Exciting. What is everybody's go-to dessert? Mine depends on the day, but I like ice cream the most.
I love just a chocolate chip cookie.
Cookies. Like it.
I'm a big fan of ice cream too. It's a major weakness.
Must be an Amanda thing. Cake, Tony says. Yum. What kind of cake, Tony? Do you have a certain flavor you like?
I am not picky. If it comes out of the oven, it's iced, I'm ready to eat it.
Love it.
I do love a pineapple upside down cake, German chocolate, some of those a little off because that's what grandma always made me.
Makes sense. Sue likes ice cream with chocolate chip cookies. Oh my gosh, Sue, why would you do that? Maybe I shouldn't ask this question.
That's because Sue is a wonderful baker. So
That is
everything that comes out of Sue's kitchen is delish.
Love it. That is true. Anybody else want to share their favorite? Oh, Alicia, ice cream for me too, especially ice cream cake. Oh my goodness. Yes. Did you know that Dairy Queen makes an ice cream pizza? So if you like the crumble cookie in the middle, that's the bottom part of it. So delicious.
What? I need that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go look for it.
Some have it, some don't have it. Just depends on your Dairy Queen, but it was the best thing ever. All right, it's kind of quiet coming in, so I'm gonna introduce Elaine from the office, Colorado Department of Early Childhood. I'm sorry, gotta get used to that change, and she's gonna go over new things that are happening in PDIS for us. Take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine, and I am the PDIS manager at the Department for Early Childhood. So I will be showing you some of the new functionality that we have built in related to work experience for employees. And then if there's time at the end, I'm happy to answer any questions that people have. But I will start sharing my screen. All right. Can you guys see my screen? And is it the PDIS? Okay,
yep.
Great. So there's a few different pieces that we've built in related to verified work experience. So I'm just going to walk you through all of the parts of it. So the first part is adding experience for employees. So anyone who is a director or a workforce manager for their program is able to go into the PDIS and add experience hours directly for their staff. So this can be done instead of the director letter. And so what you do is you go to the menu, my profile, my employees. If you don't see this my employees section, it means you still need to get the permission set of director or workforce manager. And you can find the guidance for how to do that on Navi. Actually, you know what? I will just send the link to it right now. So if you do need permissions as workforce manager or a director, here's the how-to guide to do it. But then once you have that, you should see my employees. You go to that page, it'll take you here. You click the program that you want to enter information for, and then all of the employees for that program will show up. And then you'll see this new column called Add Employee Experience for all staff. And so I'm going to go into my account, and then you click that and this new pop-up window will show up. So I'm going to walk through this kind of piece by piece, and happy to answer questions as I go through. So the first thing that you'll see is the hire date here. If the employee also has an end date, then you'll see an end date here as well. And so that's just kind of to help you frame what time frame we're thinking about. The next thing you'll see is this previously verified experience. So if we go to a different user, okay, I must have put experience in for that one. It's hard to know which of these. Okay, so if you go to someone who doesn't already have experience saved to their profile, it will just, there won't be any dates here. But if you go to someone who does already have experience, you'll be able to see when they have experience for. So between this person's hire date and February 21st of this year, they already have experience for. So you won't be adding, you can't have overlapping experience for one employment. So I wouldn't be able to add in experience for this person from like the beginning of February to now, for example. One caveat to this is that if someone works across different programs or different employers, you can have overlapping experience if they're at different programs, but within one program, you cannot. So what this looks like, so that's what we see here. And then the dates to add verified experience. These are the dates that you're putting in, adding new hours for. And so we'll see if I try to add experience for what day is today? So 28th. I'll get this error message that says it overlaps with previously verified experience because February 1st overlaps here. But if I make this February 22nd, then that warning message goes away and I can keep going. So what you want to look for here is this verified dates to add verified experience. If this is the first time that you're doing this, you could go ahead and add from the hire date to today's date for all of your staff, just to get all of that experience in the system for them. And then we don't really have a recommended cadence for updating this because we want people to be able to do whatever works best for them. But one example could be that like every January, the director goes in and adds hours for the past year. And so then every January, you would just say January 1st, 2022 to January 1st, 2023. Again, I'm getting this because it overlaps hours, but that's what you want to think about for adding in verified experience and like a potential approach to doing this the first time. So let me go back to the dates I had already. This next piece is, okay, how many children does the staff work with? So this is a licensing requirement that verified experience needs to be with 4 or more children. And so if you type in a number less than 4, you'll see this error message. And you can always reach out to your licensing specialist if you have any questions. But we'll say that this person worked with 8 children. And then there's 2 ways to add experience hours. You can have the PDIS calculator, or you can enter the total hours yourself. So entering total hours, this is going to be more similar to that director letter. If you already know how many hours the staff member has worked with each age group of children, then you can go in here and you can just add them in directly. So there's 3 boxes here for each different age group of children. So this first one is children 8 or younger, excluding infants and toddlers. This next one is children 9 or older. And then the last one is infants and toddlers. And you have this little pop-up box here for how we are defining infants and toddlers to make that clearer. And so what you can do is I can say, in this past month, This person had 300 hours working with children under 8 in our preschool classroom and 35 hours in the infant and toddler classroom. No hours with 9 or older. Then you click add verified hours and it will show all of this information here. This is an error message that's supposed to say 0, so I'm going to just write that down. But if you don't put any numbers in for a certain age group, that is totally fine. You just need to have hours entered for at least one age group. So if these look good, you can accept. If you want to change it, you go back and do edit hours. Tony, I see you have your hand up, so I will let you ask your question.
I'm just curious if they work with a mixed age group, how that would work.
Yeah, so it would need to, So are you thinking like in a family childcare home where someone just has?
Yes, for family childcare homes for one, but then I also have been in center-based programs that do choose to have mixed age classrooms.
I think I would. That's a really good question. If it is someone who is infant toddler who specializes in infant and toddler work, then and they are working with infants and toddlers in that mixed age, then potentially just put them here, or you could split them out and do 50-50. I think so the reason we have these age groups split out is because there are different applications, qualifications, and credentials that people can have depending on what age group they work with. So if this is someone who is really focusing on infants and toddlers and wants to have that infant toddler specialization, then I would recommend putting the hours here. But I would say you can always reach out to your licensing specialist and just see what their recommendation is, because that is not my area of expertise.
Well, since we have a couple of the licensed specialists on the call, what are you guys suggesting for us? Sorry, Elaine.
No, you're good.
You know, I'm not exactly sure how they would divide that up, being that there's school age children, you know, the preschool rooms and the school age can be combined at certain times of the day. I don't know if they should divide up a certain number of them or how they want to do that. Who else is on? Is Susan on?
Where's Susan when we need her? No, I'm not sure how we're doing it either.
I think she's on the phone, so I don't know if she's able to get off of.
I can check on it for you guys and get an answer back to you.
That would be wonderful.
I'll
Yeah,
just
thank
send
you,
it.
Mary.
I'll just send it to you, Amanda. Is that?
Yeah, that'll be perfect. And I'll also send it to Elaine too,
Yeah,
and everybody else. I'll send it out to everybody.
Great.
Perfect.
Very good question. So if that is the route you want to take, you would click add verified hours. If you don't have any hours entered and you click this, you will get an error message because you need to have something. But if so that's the first way, which is entering the total hours. The other way to add hours is to have PDIS calculate experience hours. This is it looks pretty much the exact same. The main difference here is that if you click PDIS calculate, you're going to be entering the hours per week that the staff works rather than the total hours in the time period that you've selected. So for this example, let's say that the staff worked 35 hours per week in a preschool classroom and then sits in for an hour a week in the infant and toddler room. Then you click add verified hours and this confirmation screen will then calculate the number, those weekly hours over the time period that you've entered, and will show you the total number of hours that someone has worked in that time period based on the weekly hours that you put in. If these look good, you can accept. If, like, let's say for instance, I accidentally put in 50 hours here and I look at this and I say, oh, this actually doesn't look right. Let me go back, change this to 5, add verified hours. And then once I feel good about them, I click accept. And then there will be this attestation. Again, this is from licensing, and this is kind of how we're working with meeting all of those licensing requirements for verified experience, having that director signature, and all of that piece. So there's this legal attestation that you really do stand by these hours that you're submitting for your staff. You can always go back, take another look and make sure you feel good about it. And then you click agree. And those hours are then saved to that, that staff member's page. I entered those hours for myself for this example, but typically you won't be able to see the employees side of it. So that is how hours get entered. I'll pause it before I move on to the next part. People are still able to upload director letters and experience letters for review. And we do have a back-end process. So our ECPC reviewers are adding in, for any letters that they accept, they're adding those hours to the user's profile. So in addition to a director adding in hours, our staff will start uploading those for the documents that we're reviewing. That one thing to note here, that's when these previously verified experience is going to be really helpful. So if you have someone who sent in a letter, we accepted that letter and added it in, and then you're going to add in experience for that staff member, you'll be able to see when they already have experience verified for, and just add in additional outside of that range. Okay, any other questions about adding experience? All right, so once someone has experience added, what they can do is go to my profile and then go to the employment tab, and they'll see this new window called employment summary, and it will show total verified experience hours, again, broken out by each age group. This is going to be combined across all programs. So in this instance, my account only has one program associated with it. So these hours are all within one program. But in theory, if people are working across programs, or you can get historical hours added, this summary will be across all programs, all verified experience hours that an individual has. Then this new thing that has now been a function as of Sunday, so it's been live for 2 days, are these experience letters and experience summaries. So we know that while this workaround helps for most things, there will be people who aren't as active in the PDIS and aren't using this system. And so if someone wants to apply for a program who isn't as active in the PDIS or moves out of state and needs this physical documentation, then they can print an experience letter. They'll get this pop-up window to choose which program they want to make this experience letter for. Only programs that have experience hours tied to it will show up in this drop-down menu. So if I have another employment in my PDIS profile, but I don't have any hours associated with that employment, it won't show up as an option here. That's just a note if people are a little confused, but you click the employer you want this letter for, you click confirm, and then it generates this letter. And so it has the license number, which will be a real license number, and the dates of verified experience, all of the hours of verified experience, and then at the bottom there's some information about questions about the experience letter. But then they'll have this PDF and can export it, print it, do whatever they need to do to have this actual physical experience letter from all of the hours that are saved with their profile. Any questions on that?
I have a quick question. This
Yeah.
is Mary. So when these letters print out, tell me again, so the director is the only one that can go in there and put in the number of hours, is that correct?
Yeah, great question. So experience hours can get added two ways. One way is the director or workforce manager can add it in the way I just showed you. The other way is a back-end process. So if someone is applying for ECPC or early childhood professional credential, and they upload their experience letters with their application, our reviewers are now adding the hours from those letters into people's profiles on the back end.
Okay. So if this person left this job, went to the next job, those hours would stay in there even though you don't have a confirmed letter from the school.
Correct.
Okay.
But the user, so then that person will be able to go into their own PDIS profile and create this experience letter.
Okay.
Yeah,
I-
great question.
Yeah, this is actually really helpful. We just went through Colorado Shines, and one of my teachers was trying incredibly hard, reached out multiple times to get an experience letter, and got a lot of pushback because the person did not physically hand sign it. And so is that piece still going to be required of the experience letters that are handed between the director to the employee? Because we're, like I said, I've had multiple staff get a lot of pushback about that piece.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So that is something we work pretty closely with licensing and developing these this functionality, because we wanted to make sure that licensing felt comfortable accepting it. And we know that there's so many restrictions on those physical letters. And it's frustrating for us to have to reject them. I know it's frustrating for people to get that rejection, to have to go back and get updates for little things like a wet signature or license number or whatnot. So we are hoping that this is just makes things easier for everyone. That being said, any actual letters that are uploaded and submitted do still need to meet all of those licensing requirements. But for instance, if someone, got a letter rejected, they could reach out to the director of the program and just have the director add hours in here, and then they'll be accepted for the application. They wouldn't need to rewrite a letter.
So that was going to be my next question. Are we as directors going to be able to see previous staff that worked for us to where we could like backdate almost what their hours?
Yeah. So that is definitely possible. But those previous staff will have to add themselves, or will have to add the program into their PDIS profile. And then they should, you can give them a status. I'm not sure if any of the examples here have this status, but I can show you. Let's see. So Charlene no longer works with the Department of Early Childhood. So her status would be employee verified and no longer active. Oh, but you do need an end date here. So let's just say, oh. And so then your historic staff will, okay, so let me figure out, there's got to be a way to see verified and no longer active, because then you'll be able to add experience for any historical staff that do have their employment with your program, and they will show up as verified not active, so they won't get counted into any like ratings or anything like that, but you'll be able to add experience for them.
Okay,
What
thank
happens-
you.
Sorry, Kara.
No, you're okay. I
What-
was just, thank you.
Yeah, you're good. What happens if a center permanently closes?
That's a really good question. So if it's set up in the PDIS and people already have their employment connected, The director should still be able to go in and add that experience for everyone, just with an end date as they're closing out the program. That is something that I would want to check with licensing around, just to make sure that the timing works out. And no, I don't know if a program closes, actually how that impacts what shows up in the PDIS, and it should. So I'm writing that down on my list. What other questions? These are great.
There was one in the chat. Will there be an age group option for school age children 5 to 13 years of age? And I know Kara asked something similar to that previously too.
Yeah, there will not. So for most of our applications and most of our credentials, we only accept hours worked with children 8 and younger. So if I know with mixed programs that can get really mixed age programs that can get really confusing. I think it makes the most sense if this really was, you know, an early childhood focused position and the work was done with younger children, then I think it would be okay to submit this as 5 to 8 as the age range. Or if it was more mixed, then potentially, like we talked about earlier, splitting up some of those hours. Part of those hours go between the 8 and younger, and part of those hours go to 9 and older. The director qualification does accept experience with children aged 9 or older. So there are some places where we do take that into account for credentials and qualifications. But I know it gets tricky with mixed age groups. All right, any other questions? Okay, so I'm gonna go back here and show you the next. The other piece here is an experience summary. So an experience letter has the information on the program specifically, and it is specific to one program. An experience summary is across all employments, all verified experience that someone has. This isn't going to be a fantastic example because I only have one employment connected to this profile, but what it will look like if you generate an experience summary is that every employer will show up as its own section. So it'll be childcare ABC, license number and location with the dates and the hours worked. And then it would be the next center or program that someone worked with and their license number and all the hours worked in that program. And this can contain as many employments as someone has attached to their PDIS profile.
With this, I'm going to ask licensing another question with this. Will this be accepted for you guys in their file? This breakdown one of all of them in one, or do we have to print off individual ones?
I'm going to say that it will be accepted. Licensing, so any hours that are included in either this summary or letter that is generated from the PDIS, those hours are all considered valid by licensing. So using this document that just combines everything, all of the hours in it will be accepted. That being said, this is a new document. And so I shared some of this functionality with the licensing team at large. And I should reach out to them again to see if they want a demo of this experience summary and letter. So it is new, but if there are any questions, I am happy to follow up and give some context that these are valid hours and should be accepted. But I, again, worked with some of the licensing managers on this, so they do know about this and it should all be good. Okay, the last thing I wanted to show you all here is in applications. So the last thing we did with this experience summary is that for any applications that have any components related to experience, direct experience, those hours will automatically be pulled into the application. So the first example here is the early childhood professional credential. If you go here, you will now see qualifying experience in the PDIS system. All the hours that I have to my profile are already counted towards my points in the ECPC. Then there's this other field, enter hours of other qualifying experience. So this is where you would enter any hours from experience letters or any documentation that you have that isn't part of these hours. And you can upload those with your application. They'll get reviewed. The reviewers will then look at those letters and enter any hours in addition to these that are included. So this is true of the ECPC. You will see it also in the director qualifications. It's already there. Again, you can add more. The coach credentials include this. So any application that has an experience component, the hours will already be counted. This is also great if you, like, let's say there's a turnaround time on the ECPC. So it's taking a while for the state to review documents. What you could do there is you could upload an experience letter, and in the month that it takes for your application to be reviewed, you would potentially get another point in experience or something that you would want to that make sure gets counted towards your ECPC. What the director can do is at any time, if an application is pending review and hasn't been looked at yet, a director can go in and add hours for that staff that will be counted towards their ECPC. So that way you can get credit for the hours that you've worked while waiting for your credential to be reviewed. All right, those are the experience enhancement updates I have for you guys.
There is a question in the chat. The school-age classrooms and licensed child care programs serve children ages 5 through 12. Licensing still requires staff in those classrooms to be early childhood teacher qualified. The hours of experience with school agers do not count. They're confused about that.
That is a great question. So is it one classroom with all of those ages?
So this is just across the board. Sorry, Amanda. This is just across the board in childcare programs. Some of them, serve, they start babies at 6 weeks and go up to 12 years old. So each childcare program has a variety of different classrooms with different ages. So I was just thinking about a lot of our programs do have these types of classrooms that serve the older age group. There's still the requirement for them to be early childhood teacher qualified to staff those classrooms. But what I think I heard you say was those hours with children over 8 years old won't count towards credit. So I'm just confused on how that all works.
Yeah, that is a very good question. So my understanding is that hours worked with children 9 or older would not count towards an early childhood teacher qualification or an early childhood professional credential. I think that is a question for licensing. That's a policy piece. And so I like any time spent in a classroom with children 8 or younger would count. Time in those classrooms with older children, my understanding as of now is that they would not count, but that's definitely a good question to ask about.
Mary, do you have any thoughts about that?
I'm not sure, because usually though the classrooms like in the centers that are school age classrooms are 5 and up and they could go to age 13. So, I'm thinking that you could just add those hours in the up to 8 years of age. But like I said, I'll find out. I'll have to find out how they're going to count this as, the ages break down and how they're going to do that. So let me get some information on it, because this is the first time I've heard about the breakdowns like that on PDIS. So I don't want to give any false information. So,
Sounds
okay,
good.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry. Sure.
Thank you for looking into that, Mary. I really appreciate it. All right. Any other questions? So while I have you, I can just share a little bit more what we're working on with the PDIS. The first big thing that we have added in addition to this is PD. PD is our chat bot. And so you'll see in the bottom corner of the PDIS a way to chat with him. And so okay. I am having an issue with PD today, and it looks like it's only happening for me because I've connected with our tech team and this isn't showing up for anyone else. So hopefully it's not showing up for you either. But in theory, you can, let's just try closing this and restart it. Okay, so you'll see chat with PD and you click it. And then there we go. And so PD has some information. So we worked with our help desk to figure out like what were some of the most common questions and things that people needed help troubleshooting. And so that's what we prioritize for building into this kind of like first version of PD. And so there's two ways to engage with him. One is to click one of these based on what you're looking for. So if you are trying to figure out how to update your employment information, you'll say, are you looking for personal employment information or staff employment? And then based on what you click, it'll tell you how to get there. If it doesn't answer your question, oh, I clicked the wrong thing. If it doesn't answer your question, you'll be able to submit a help desk ticket. You can also just directly go to a help desk ticket from the menu. Another thing you can do is have it send you a password reset. So this is a function that's also live on the login screen. So before you've even logged in, if you're having trouble, you can open PD and have them send you a password reset. Outside of these 5 things, we have a few other pieces of information built into PD. And so if you, for instance, are looking on information on your ECPC, you type that in and he'll share some information. And we are going to keep building this out so we can see what questions people ask that he can't answer on the back end. And so we saw that a lot of questions were coming in on the early childhood educator tax credit. So we're building in an answer that should be live by Friday. So so if you were to type in tax credit now, it wouldn't give you anything, but starting Friday, when you type in tax credit, PD will provide information on the tax credit and a website that the Department of Revenue has put together about it. So we are excited. We're hoping that this will help people get the support that they need faster and just help people kind of navigate through the PDIS quicker. And we're going to keep building out the kinds of things he can answer. The last thing I wanted to share was that we are doing a kind of revamp of the user interface for the PDIS, so making it easier to find some of the main functions that people use. So some of like the required courses, applications, employment information, just making some of that stuff easier and more intuitive to find. So we do have this survey. It was posted on the homepage of the PDIS for a little while. And so let me send it in the chat. And so if you do have any feedback on the PDIS, we would love to hear it. I ask if you could try to get this in by the end of the week, because I'm starting to pull everything together and send this feedback to our design team to get some ideas of ways we can improve it. But that's what I wanted to share with you all today. Would love to hear about other questions. Oh, and sorry, there was one other thing I wanted to share with you all. We have a how-to guide for adding employee experience. So this is what I talked through earlier, but just want to share that out with you all. So you can have it.
And we're still not 100% sure on turnaround time for help desk questions and all that right now.
Yeah, that is a great question. So we've been working on it, but we have been understaffed for about 6 months on the help desk. We actually have our new help desk lead starting on Monday. And we're really excited. She has a lot of experience and we're hoping she'll be able to kind of get us in shape and get us to a quicker turnaround. I also am planning on spending a decent amount of my time in April responding to help desk tickets. So we know there is a pretty significant lag. I think right now we are 2 to 3 months out in answering questions. Any questions related to the professional credential, we are forwarding to our ECPC manager. And so she's able to answer those a little bit quicker. But yeah, I would say we're about 2 to 3 months of a turnaround time, but hoping to make some pretty significant changes in the next month or two to get that back to a more reasonable response time.
This is more for a coaching question, so I apologize to everybody else on this call. When a site is going through their rating and they need to get their credentials updated quick because they're in their rating and waiting, how do you guys know that they're in their waiting window and you're pushing them first? Because I still have sites that never got pushed through before the rating was done. So for those, the credentials are, so any site that is going through a QRIS review is on the list to be reviewed. Any individual who has their employment associated with that site, those ECPCs get put on a separate prioritization list and they are scored the month after the rating window closes. So if someone's going through a rating in February, the ECPC applications, they're on a different queue, so Clayton reviews those ECPCs who does the QRIS ratings themselves. And so they go to them and they're scored the month after the review. If you do know of like someone's employment was set up correctly, they got their application in before the rating window closed and it wasn't reviewed, let me know. I can share that with our ECPC manager and we can figure out why that happened. But they're prioritized on a separate list and they should get in time. Another question on that, I'm sorry. If something was wrong with that though, there's not enough time to fix that because it's already closed. So sometimes you guys kick back certain things that was on the application and then that site doesn't have time to go back in and fix it during their rating window. Does that make sense? That does make sense. I don't know enough information about that process, but I can connect you with our ECPC manager who does know that information and would be able to answer your questions. That would be great, actually. I appreciate that. I can do that. Thank you. Of course. Any other questions? Great. Well, I really appreciate you giving me your time today. It was great to be able to talk with you all. Thank you. We appreciate you being on here and showing us the new features. It's kind of nice that people can put the employee in there and employment status and hours in there and not worry about a letter because sometimes a letter is a pain in the butt to get from previous employers or owners. So a director having that control is kind of nice. Yeah, that's our goal, is to make things easier, not harder, but sometimes it's a roundabout way to get there. Understandable. Appreciate that. Everybody else in the chat, thank you, Elaine. I appreciate that. Can you please put your first and last name and email address so I can send you any follow-up? That way you can get all the information that we have. Then other than that, you get 15 minutes back to your life. And I appreciate everybody taking time out of their day to be here. Thank you, everyone.